Hello, beautiful people. I'm Chris Maddox, founder of the Wild Woman Project and Wild Woman Fest. And I'm speaking to you today because we always meet like this at new moon time. And the new moon is upon us. It arrives on August 8th, 2021. And this new moon is a special occasion for us here at the Wild Woman Project because this moon cycle will conclude our exploration in a theme that we've been carrying for nearly a year. Our theme has been to wield love, asking ourselves if love is the most powerful force on earth, how do we actually wield it? So, on this final new moon of this year-long exploration, I wanted to bring to you some food for thought and talk a bit about love and fear and the relationship between the two. I also want to, in this video, give you a practice to play with to increase and expand your capacity to experience love this cycle. And then we'll talk about some other fun things. So, the Wild Woman archetype, which really unites us in the Wild Woman Project community and those who have found ourselves in our spaces, whether you've been at our Wild Woman Fest or you've joined a circle or joined us for a training or online gathering, we focus on the Wild Woman archetype, which is a kind of energetic blueprint, a set of instincts and patterns that we can see, like so many other archetypes. We can see in mythology, we can see in history, we can see in art, we can see in contemporary life. And those of us drawn to the Wild Woman archetype, with her resonance and connection to the natural world, we are a loving bunch. There is a lot of love, I think, that is sort of built into the Wild Woman archetype, no matter how we wear it, and each of us works with that energy in a different way. But there is a deep and abiding love of the natural world, of which we are all a part. And there is an sort of like, I can't overstate the amount of love that a wild woman feels for her pack. So, whoever her pack is, the people most dear to her, there is an extraordinary amount of love. The wild woman archetype is also characterized by her respect for instinct, a wild instinct, right? And fear, which sits a bit in opposition to love in certain instances, right? So there's that famous line, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's fear, because underneath hatred is fear, right? So fear, when we think about the instinctual self, the wild self, fear is an intelligent force. Fear will, thinking back in our ancestry, the instinct of feeling fear when we suddenly realize that we are being hunted by a mountain lion. And then how the body responds, fight or flight, to that threat. So we have that we are built with that on purpose. It wasn't an accident that we feel fear. Our fear instincts in a lot of ways and in a lot of places are sacred and an important part to listen to in the inner life. If we fast forward to modern day, modern people, are part of a society where there are many fear merchants, particularly in the world of the media, current world of the media, which is really, really new, right? I think sometimes we need to I think we need to often pause ourselves and realize how new the internet is, how new like the ability to communicate across the world so swiftly, how new even radio is, which is like older in our mind, it's brand. And if you're looking at the long view of history, these media um, apparatus apparati, these radio, television, internet, newspaper, books, etc. It's relatively new technology for us, right? And in the information age, which is really modern, um, in the information age, there is an attention economy. So that social media companies and whatever news programming you're watching, they want you. It is their business model to do whatever they need to do to get you to be glued like this to your screen. And one of the things that they do in order to make that happen is to send out, to hype everything up, to make it as incendiary as possible, as to activate your nervous system and keep you engaged and say, what's next? What's next? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And it is, um, you know, and a really important thing for us to pause and to really regulate our intake of whatever media it is that we are consuming, and to remember that there is such a thing as an attention economy, and that what sells is the most incendiary thing. And I live here in the United States, and I would say in the last 10 years especially, the media news landscape, their whole model, you have a red team and you have a blue team. They have their news networks. And the business model is to make the other side bad and try to make you believe that they are a threat to everything you hold dear, your person, everybody you ever loved. And it's just this extraordinary, a toxic theater. And it's a real change from what journalism used to be. There's a great book on this if you're curious about this subject matter and how this all evolved. It's called Hate Inc. Hate Inc. Hate, like Hate Incorporated, by Matt Taibbi, who's one of my favorite journalists. So when we live as modern human beings in a landscape like this, especially when we've been in these pandemic times that have forced us into isolation and then being more plugged into our various screens and media programming, that there seems to be an extraordinary amount of fear that has been, in a lot of ways, really hyped up, really manufactured, Not to say that there's nothing to be afraid of in this world. Of course there is. There always has been and there always will be. But we wild women are known for being willing to stand outside of the mainstream consciousness, to be tapped into the earth, to be tapped into our love of our pack, of our planet, of ourselves. And, we're kind of used to being a little bit on the outside of the mainstream. And when you sit a little bit on the outside of the mainstream and you can kind of see the dynamics playing out from further back, that really is an antidote to getting swept up in the fear. Because we're so relational. Of course we are. We like to sit in women's circle and tell our stories and listen to one another and laugh together and cry together. We're so relational. We see somebody else freaking out and worrying, and we are, oh gosh, worried. So part of the work of this time that we're in as wild women in a modern world where you know these are just like the realities. We are uh, living in a place where, for whatever reason, there is a perpetuation of extraordinary fear. So what do we do with that? So that's why I think the contemplation and love is so important, because one of the things that happens whenever like a population or a community is in extraordinary state of fear, right, is that they're easily controlled, easily manipulated, and there's often a lot of tumult. There's a lot of tumult. And I think it's a really important thing to do right now is to spend time in nature, spend time unplugged, spend time calming the nervous system, spend time, you know, taking good care, taking good care of your heart and of your mind and of your body, and reclaiming a sense of, independence within. We're in relationship, but we can use a lot of independence right now to see how we actually feel about things and make sure that we're not just getting swept up into hysteria or hatred or othering or groupthink. Because one of the unfortunate things that's happening from the whole us them conversation, which plays out in so many different ways with so many different us's and thems, um, is that when we start to see in the language that people are being dehumanized, that's a real indication that there's a dysfunction there. And that's historically does not go well. So whether you read a history book or whether you dust off your copy of 1984 by George Orwell, it's really important to not let the powerful emotion of fear overcome ourselves to the point where we are rash, where we are making ourselves sick, where we are finding ourselves um, angry at others, hateful towards others, lashing out. I mean, these are the kinds of things that fear will stir up, especially when it's collective. So in this time, August 2021, can you believe it's August 2021? We look to love again and again and again and again. And in a world like this, where the dominant messages that are coming out through the radio airwaves, through the interwebs, through the news networks are hatred and fear, to be a force for love, to allow love to run through your system instead of fear and hate and anger, to love your neighbor, to love your family, to love the earth, to love those with whom you disagree. This love is, I know fear is really powerful, right? It's got a lot of charge. You can like remember maybe at a moment in your life where you're really scared. We've all been there. We're scared of something. We're scared. We're in fear. And perhaps in that moment, someone was there in some way to put their arm around you and to hold you, to soothe you, to say, I'm here with you, to say, I care. That kind of empathy, that kind of love in action is like the healing force in this reality. Fear's frequency is ah, and love goes. And each and every time that we love another person unconditionally, and we actually feel it, it's not an idea, it's here. We feel it even when they're fearful, even when they themselves are unhinged, are angry and lashing out and othering and dehumanizing. If we can have the discipline to let love run in the space between us and to not get caught up in being reactive to that, to let our reaction be to stand in love. The love is a joy maker. Love is a soother. Love is the healer. So let us not get swept up into fear and hate and anger. Now, love can be direct. Love isn't just like this mushy thing. Sometimes it's really mushy, but sometimes love is saying no. Love is holding your space. Love is holding a boundary. That can be that's a very loving thing to do, as long as you don't do it with hatred. But to be in love, to stay in love, it takes extraordinary discipline, which is why we need practice. Practice is to really practice this loving. So this is what I want to offer you in form of a practice. And I encourage you to do it near new moon time. And I think it sort of opens up a little bit of a process. So if you were in the last Wild Woman School with us at the end of July, then you're a little bit familiar with this practice. So this is love through the senses. So we're looking for evidence of love. So if you have a journal nearby, you can take your journal and go through all of the five senses. And you say, I see love in this. How do I hear love? What does love sound like? What does love smell like? What does love feel like? And you go through all of the five senses. Did I hit them all? Sight, sound. What does love taste like? That's the one I forgot. So what is love? You're looking for evidence of love. So get really specific in this practice, y'all. Do like love smells like whatever my husband is cooking come 5 o'clock in the evening every single day. The smell of him, whatever is coming off of the stove at that 5 o'clock hour, and like really get as specific for yourself. So whatever your example is, you could do love sounds like the voice of my child, not making words, but making sounds, like that sweet and precious tone that she makes whenever she's, you know, so whatever is true for your life, right? So what does love smell like? What does love look like? Where do you see love with your eyes? Um, where do you hear love? Where do you taste love? And so forth. And take this to your journal and really get as specific as possible. And once you go line by line, one sense at a time. And once you've written it down, to like take a moment, put your pen down and feel it. Remember the feeling. Remember that feeling. And it's visceral in the practice. Once you have named it and you have remembered it, then take a breath or two to feel yourself experiencing that memory, and go piece through all the five senses, just one for each. And once you've done that, you've written it down, you've taken your pause, you've felt it, you'd remembered it. It takes like maybe 5 minutes to do, but it is like being infused with love. Because we experience love in so many moments. But one of the things that happens is we don't receive it fully, especially when we're fearful. So we don't receive it fully. So allow yourself to remember, whatever it is, what does love smell like? Maybe it's the hair of your beloved, maybe, who knows what it is. In Wild Woman School, we heard so many great examples from the group. So it can be anything, be as specific, and give yourself this as a practice. And it's meant for you to become more aware and present to the love that is coming around all the time, and to really actually experience it through your body, so that it's not just a thought, oh, they love me, but it's a feeling, it's a full bodied feeling. And this practice is really beautiful thing to do, especially if you find yourself in a moment of fear and uncertainty. This is a practice, and we need our practices now. This is the time. The times that we're living through are extraordinary. We need our practices. That's what they're for. I used to laugh because my then boyfriend would say, practice, what are you practicing for? I talk about my practices. Well, what are you practicing for? Life, this life, and now. And that's why throughout this whole year that we've been on this To Wield Love journey together, the practices are the things that I keep coming back to and zeroing in on. We've had whole Wild Woman School sessions, like solely about making rituals, solely about meditation practice, and all other forms connecting to ancestors, etc., poetry, music, all of the tools that we have garnered up until this point. It's time to use them, and to use them every single day. I have one final quote from the great Bell Hooks, who I have been quoting over and over and over again for this whole theme, reading out of her beautiful book called All About Love, which I highly recommend you find. But before I give you that quote, I want to let you know of some fun things that are happening. So every new moon, we have Wild Woman Project circles happening all over the globe. A lot of them happen online. So if you'd like to join in one of those circles, you can find a link below this video. If the idea of facilitating your own circle, online or in person, sounds juicy to you, we have our fall circle leader training coming up. Link below this video to look for information about that and sign up for email updates. I want to also mention that all of the Wild Woman schools from this whole year, which we've done 9, over 13 hours of content, we've put all together and made it into an extremely affordable bundle. So you can look to those sessions if you want some more resources and tool building and practices around love. And finally, we're doing something brand new this fall, and we're super excited about it. We have a new 4-week workshop series called Befriending Your Moon Cycle. Befriending Your Moon Cycle. So it's specifically about menstruation and looking at it through a sort of wild woman lens. And it's a small group, so it'll be intimate. The 4 workshops happen on Mondays with a great facilitator, Nina Paris. Nina Paris is a yoga teacher. She's a tantra teacher, and she's one of our beloved Wild Woman Project circle leaders. You will love her. She's so down to earth. And this subject matter, you know, she's a mama, and she's very much a wild woman living her wild woman archetype in Nova Scotia, with her small family, her growing family. And we're going to look at those 4 weeks of the 4 major parts of the hormonal cycle. And there's going to be storytelling and sharing, and she's offering like a bonus yoga class that's just for when you're on your moon time. So you can look to the link below this video, and there's a lot more information. So there's, you know, what we're going to be doing on this page, who is this for, frequently asked questions. And, you know, you can always email us if you have any questions at all, but do sign up if you're interested for updates, because the space is limited, and I have a sense that this one will go fast, just because it's a subject matter so in alignment with our work. So I'm glad to finally be offering something around the menstrual cycle. So I hope you will join us for that. So all of the links of everything I've just said below this video. Please join us for whatever calls to you. And I will read to you now this bell hooks quote. Love is a combination of care, commitment, knowledge, responsibility, respect, and trust. There she is, naming the multifaceted nature of love. So may you experience love, may you practice love this moon cycle, and may you wield love well in your life and in your community. Thank you so much for your attention today.